Alright everybody, it's Eight Fingered Man here with my third and final video on money. My last video, I ended by saying that value and purchasing power weren't the same thing. I said that money had purchasing power that was pretty much set, but not necessarily a value. You may think that this is semantics, but it's not. It really is a distinction. The difference between purchasing power and value is dollar has a certain level of purchasing power, but value is something that is subjective to the individual person that's spending the money. So, for instance, if the $1 US has the purchasing power to buy one dry erase Sharpie, then that's the purchasing power of it. This Sharpie costs $1. So I think to myself, okay, well, I don't have very many dollars, so that dollar is worth more to me than the Sharpie is. And that's value. But the value that I place on this Sharpie and or on that dollar is not going to affect that dollar's purchasing power. All it's going to affect is whether or not I spend that money. And so value is very subjective. Purchasing power is standardized. It's not steady and it's never the same necessarily, but it is standardized. Originally, purchasing power was indicated by what backed the money, and to some extent, it's still that way, but not really. So originally, money was backed by gold or silver or some kind of precious metal or gems or something, depending on what civilization. It could have been bronze, copper, nickel, some kind of metal. For thousands of years was what backed pretty much all currency. And even when the United States started printing paper money in the 1800s, it was based on a gold amount. Now, the advantage gold has over a gold standard or a silver standard or a metal standard has over what our current monetary system is that the money is going to have a semi-constant value. Price of gold is going to fluctuate with the market, so the price of the dollar is going to fluctuate with the market, but it's only going to be a slight up and down. If you purchase, if you purchase US dollars, you are purchasing that amount of US dollars in actual gold. You don't have that gold in hand, but you can take that certificate into Fort Knox or wherever the US keeps its gold and say, I want this much gold in exchange for this money. And in theory, you can actually get that gold. That certificate is a note saying that you own that much gold at that bank. And that's what backed currency is. The price of gold is going to fluctuate with the market. If a new mine opens up and there's a massive influx of the availability of gold, the market price for gold is going to drop, and therefore the price of the dollar is going to drop a little bit. If a bunch of banks buy up the gold, if a bunch of jewelry stores buy up the gold, and those mines start running dry, the price of gold is going to go up a little bit. It's not going to go up much because there's still pretty much set amount of gold that just kind of changes hands from buyer to seller and on and on. So the price of gold is pretty much set on the market, and it only fluctuates a little. The reason why the price of gold has been skyrocketing recently, I think it's getting upwards to, or it's heading towards $2,000 an ounce. I don't think it's quite there yet. It's probably several $100s off, but it's heading that direction, to about $2,000 an ounce. That is not because the price of gold is fluctuating. The price of gold is fluctuating just a little bit, maybe a couple $100s an ounce is the fluctuation range. But actually what's causing the price of gold to go up is the fact that we have a fiat currency. And fiat currency basically means there is no backing. We just print the money and tell you it's worth something. The advantage that a fiat currency has over something like a gold standard is that there can be no zero-sum game. With gold, there is only so much currency. You can only print the amount of currency that is valuable, that you have to back up within, the state coffers. Whereas with a fiat currency, you can literally print as much as you want or need. The huge disadvantage to fiat currency is the fact that it is constantly devaluing. And the only way to revalue a currency is a market upset, a market reset. And even then, it never revalues as much as you lost, it only stabilizes. So fiat currency has a huge disadvantage against gold, but it also has another huge advantage against it. So, and our federal government decided that it was worth more to them to be able to print as much money as they felt like using and, just go in debt to receive it. Because basically what they do is they write themselves a check, the Federal Reserve cashes it, and that becomes legitimate money. But it has no real meaning. It only has a market value based on a couple of confusing factors. One of them is the competition of world currencies, the yen, the pound, the euro, even rubles. So anyway, but value and purchasing power are very distinct. They are very separate things, and the reason I say that is not I'm not trying to pick fly poop out of pepper, but when you talk about value in economics, you are not referring to how much the money's worth. You're referring to a subjective, individual decision that a consumer is going to make and or a seller is going to make. So it's two distinct things based on different points of view, and so they separate the terms. Pretty much, you can say the value of the dollar, but what that means, just for clarity, when they talk about the value of the dollar, they're actually talking about the purchasing power of the dollar. So not the subjective value, the individual subjective value. And a lot of people say that pretty much just because when you say purchasing power, like a lot of people don't know what you're talking about. So it's a popular thing to refer to the value of the dollar, but when they do, they're in fact referring to purchasing power and not necessarily value, because value is too subjective of something to quantify. So anyway, that's my last video on money. That is about as nutshell as you can get without getting incredibly confusing. But I wanted to give you a brief overview of what money is, where it comes from, and why it works, and how it works to a slight degree before I get into some of these other videos, especially since I'm going to be talking a lot about value and purchasing power, and I don't want those two things confused. I want you, the viewer, to understand what I'm talking about when I refer to those individual things and know that I mean two different things. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.